So I'd like to welcome members and the public to this extraordinary meeting, more extraordinary in more ways than one, on 21st of October 2025. I've received apologies from Pauline Church and Howard Greenman. Had there been any other apologies today? No. I think I understand some colleagues have left, but John Wells, Early Clark and Julie Vine have left. Number two, declarations of interest. Do any members have declarations of disclosable interests or dispensations to make to the meeting? No. Okay, Chairman's announcements. Only an hour. No, I don't have any further announcements to make. Public participation. As this is an extraordinary meeting, questions and statements can only be in relation to the business specified in the summons. Members of the public who have registered to make a statement will be called upon to speak under the relevant item for up to 3 minutes each. I remind speakers that any statements must relate to the item on the agenda they are speaking to, and once their statement is concluded, they may not speak further on the item. I will remind speakers to remain on topic. Has there been any members of the public who wish to speak on this item? No. There have been no questions received for this meeting. So we move to item 5, which is the External Auditor's Statutory Recommendation. An updated report following consideration of this matter by the Audit and Governance Committee is included in Supplement 1 and can be found at pages 3 to 8, along with an extract of the minutes from that meeting at pages 9 to 13. I call upon Councillor Gavin Grant, Cabinet Member with responsibilities for finance, to present and move the recommendations for this item.
Thank you very much, Chair. I so move.
Who's going to second that? Councillor Hubbard. Do we have any public participation? No. So, Councillor Grant, would you like to begin your introduction?
Yes, and you'll be pleased to know, Chair, that the operation is only an hour and 45 minutes in length. And thank you all for staying for what was obviously the highlight of the day. I knew I was in some difficulty when, as you began to try and convene us, Chair, half the Cabinet disappeared. So thank you for all returning. This is an important and serious matter, but it's also quite a technical one. So bear with me, please. Our audited accounts of 2019-20, those who've been on the Council some time will know this saga, and those of us who've had the pleasure of serving on the Audit and Governance Committee through this period will also know the saga. Of the valuation of intangible assets. This is a feature of local government finance. Candidly, this does not exist in the real world. Nobody would be describing these things as assets if we were running a business or a charity or indeed running our own family affairs. But in local government, they exist. Many of them came into being when this unitary authority was created. And questions began to arise from our then auditors as to how these intangible assets, and if you're wondering what I'm talking about here, is a length of road, for example. Not something that we could say, okay, we'll cut that bit out and sell it to somebody else, or that we could charge people for driving along it. Auditors began to question whether these assets had been appropriately valued, and they're part of our accounts reports. And once that decision was taken, that in essence there were questions, serious questions about these assets, then it rolls through from other years, because the question is, well, you've been getting it wrong for some period of time, so now you need to get it right. Now, first thing to reassure colleagues, this is not about the functioning of this council. This is not about were we levying the right level of council tax, were we collecting our business rates effectively, were we managing our reserves and our finances properly. This is the equivalent of angels dancing on pinheads in the accountancy world. Nor were we alone in this. A very large number of local authorities have found themselves in similar difficulties, and as such have been unable, once this matter was identified, to produce accounts without qualified opinions from their auditors. And that clearly is not a position that we want to find ourselves in. Governments of both persuasions have been lobbied by local authority associations and directly by local authorities, including this one, to say, you need to help us sort this out. You changed the regulations which triggered this particular issue in technical accountancy terms. you need to resolve how we're going to sort it out. And in essence, government brought in something that they've called backstop dates. And this is the kind of cleansing of the problem, if you will. The challenge for us as a large local authority caught up in these matters was hitting those backstop dates. And there's been a huge amount of work here. And where this matter is of relevance is the amount of work equals amount of auditors' fees and pressure on our officers in our finance team. And candidly, our finance team, brilliantly led by our Director of Resources and our 151 officer, Lizzie Watkin, have better things to do than this, but technically they have to get it done. By failing to meet those backstop dates because of the pressures that they're under and all sorts of issues being raised in the transition from one set of auditors to another, and we're now currently using Grant Thornton, meant that these dates were not hit. That, in turn, triggers a response from Grant Thornton, and you'll see in the papers that response set out by them, where they've questioned the amount of resource that we're able to dedicate to these matters and the speed in which we've been able to act. Now, there was a very helpful and extremely useful debate of some vigour at Audit and Governance on this matter on the 14th of October. Very helpful interventions from a number of colleagues in the previous administration who've held my portfolio responsibilities and indeed the leader of the council's responsibilities. And a formulation of words was put together because we are duty bound to respond to that the auditors have asked of us by way of an action plan to resolve these matters. And that action plan has been put together, and the commitment is to make sure through audit and governance that the action plan is the subject of rigour and of scrutiny through that process. We do have to pass this, colleagues. It's a bit like taking the unpleasant medicine. None of us want to find ourselves here. I certainly don't want to be standing before you, and neither do our excellent officers, saying we haven't managed to do something which we really should have done. But I want to reassure you again that this is a technical matter. It doesn't affect the actual functioning of this council or its finances, but it is something which in law we need to do, and we need to get ourselves on the right side of the equation here. The recommendation, the report from officers, which you'll see in the papers, will get us onto the right side of the equation here. We will emerge from the other side of this slightly bizarre labyrinthine accountancy, local government accountancy world, and we will get to a point where our accounts are, as in the real world they actually are, will be audited and approved by our auditors without reservation. Unfortunately, that's not the position we find ourselves in today. I would ask you to support the recommendations as set out in the report. Thank you.
Thank you. If we go to group leaders, Councillor Ian Thorne.
Thank you, Chair. I have absolutely nothing to add.
Hooray. Councillor Richard Cluer.
Thank you. As Governor's pointed out, much of this is technical, it's incredibly complex, and we are definitely not alone. I sat in a National Park Authority meeting where auditors were in with not the same, but with similar issues due to the complexities of the system. However, we do need to bear in mind that our auditors are giving us a pretty stern slap on the wrist here, and we have got to address this. We can't allow the next step to occur. We have got to make sure that this is now resolved. So I agree, we have no choice, we must accept the report. But I do seek absolute assurance, whether it be here or perhaps through the Finance Select Committee or some other forum, that we are going to take the steps to address this, and we will not get into a position where we have any further issues being raised with the auditors that actually get us into a point of serious trouble. I don't see there's much more to add than that.
Thank you. Councillor Rimmer.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I completely agree with what was just said, and I think that we have to do this, but I think we have to make sure we have a situation where this doesn't occur again, and that we really look into how it ended up happening and make sure it doesn't happen again. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor, Councillor Rogers. So before going into general debate, I now call upon Councillor Mike Sankey, who's Chairman of the Audit and Governance Committee, to comment.
Thank you, Chair. Just briefly, I think all the points have really been covered, but I would only wish to add that for my part, I've got full confidence in our officers that they know what needs to be done and that they will lead us through the next few months and make sure that all the statutory obligations placed upon us will be met. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We now move on to the debate for the proposal. Any member wishing to speak, please press the button on your microphone console to be added to the queue of speakers. Okay. Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you, Chair. I agree wholeheartedly with the comments made by Councillor Grant and Councillor Clower. This is a technicality going back many years that raised its ugly head because the government changed the rules and many authorities were affected by. And therefore I'm happy that it exists and I'm happy with the work we've done in the past. However, I will raise a really big concern. This is a Section 24 notice. This is your yellow card. Next time you kick somebody, it's a red card, Section 114, and you're in serious trouble then. So this is not to be ignored. And receiving this is not to be ignored. More importantly, when you work with auditors, you agree a close-down plan. Auditors section, and so all their work is out, so they're with Wiltshire from this month to this month. They then go to somewhere else, they then go to somewhere else. You agree the plan with them. That was agreed by both parties. We failed to deliver the reports to our auditors at that planned stage. It says here, page 6 or page 8, depending on what version you've got, the close-down plan, there's been insufficient oversight by senior officers on progress and there's been a lack of escalation of issues, etc., etc. It goes through the paragraph. I asked the question at Audit and Governance whether or not there's enough resource on this. This is extra work and this is resource. But we can't afford not to please our auditors. We can't afford to have our auditors plan 2 months on site and get kicked off and have to replan. This is a failing by the current administration in terms of resource and delivering it through the officers. So yes, it's just a note. Yes, the history is well accepted, but we have to have the resource now to deliver going forward. So I'm happy to note and everything else. We also changed the electronic CAPIAM access, and at the moment hasn't got the change. So there was a change on the last one because in the response, so our officers respond to the Section 24. That's how it works. They respond to the Section 24. Good response, honest response, and open response. Quite happy with it. There wasn't any reporting back to the Audit and Governance Committee as and when they've made progress. That's been added as the last paragraph now in that report, which I thank for that happening and thank Mike for putting that through as chair. Okay? But this is serious, and what is most serious for you is we failed to deliver to our auditors on an agreed plan. Thank you. Perfectly in time.
Thank you very much. So, Councillor Berry.
I just wanted to say I'm a little upset. I'm in detention courtesy of Perry, and now I'm potentially going to see the headmaster courtesy of the auditors.
Oh dear, what a pity. Never mind. Okay, so no one else has indicated to speak. So at this point, I'll invite Councillor Grant, who's moved the original motion, if he has any final comments before we move to the vote.
Very briefly, Chair. Firstly, I'm delighted that the whole Council is now enjoying Councillor Berry's normal contributions at our area board meetings in Malmesbury, and as normally translations are made available for his asides. But in all seriousness, Philip raises a very important point, and although these are technical matters, we can't afford to find ourselves in this situation going forward. Richard asked for a commitment that we won't find ourselves in that situation going forward. I'm personally prepared to make that commitment to you and through Mike to colleagues on the Audit and Governance Committee. And I'm pleased to say that I think that my first and possibly only appearance at the recruitment panel, and again, Richard and Ashley will recall this, was our recruitment of a new section, a Deputy 151 officer who has joined this council. So we have strengthened our capacity. And certainly it is not lost on our officers the need to make sure that this work is delivered in a timely manner. And we will be reporting back, and I will be accountable through to you, Mike, and to your committee on our performance to make sure we don't find ourselves back in this situation again. I beg to move. Thank you.
Thank you. So in accordance to the Constitution, there'll be a recorded vote on this item. So you've got 20 seconds. So that has been passed unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, so that concludes the end of the extraordinary full council meeting. We now go back to the ordinary council meeting.